Let's make sure that gets up. And I do have audio today. I don't have a Wacom pin. Where is that? There it is. Okay, looks like it's doing something. Yeah. All right. Since I am completely unprepared today, what do I want to do? I guess I can load up, see if these things still work. Where we left off here. And if I need any reference, I'll go ahead and load up Quadro real quick, maybe. Warm water. Ugh. Hey, thanks for showing up. Hopefully everybody's upgraded to 4R8. If you haven't, go check it out. Also, if you're not on my Twitter feed, you may have missed the enormous amount of spam that I sent out uploading some new 4R8 videos. I'm kind of going through that. In fact, let me open up my notes here. That might help. Streaming topics and what else we need? There we go. Hey everybody, thanks for showing up. Trying to figure out what I want to do. So if you go to, I guess I could go ahead and start loading these links up too. Stream Pavwork Workshop. Okay. So if you go here to my YouTube playlist, you can check out, last week's live stream episodes and the ZBrush4.8 What's New playlist there. Cool. I haven't got through everything on my playlist yet. I kind of ran out of time, and I'm back to doing other stuff. But hopefully this weekend and as the days progress, I'll be able to go over the new features. I hit the new Gizmo and I hit the new Boolean features. But we can cover some stuff today if y'all want. Like I said, I don't really have anything prepared today, so I'll keep an eyeball out on the chat. But you can definitely check that out. That link I just sent out to my YouTube channel. It's got ZBrush4.8 What's New. Check out that playlist, and we can kind of do that. So speaking of that, let's go ahead and let me think of something. Let's make something here. What is that called? Give me a second here. Let me go to Cubimol check. There we go. Let's make a Cubimol check real quick. So I'm going to go ahead and save one of these images here. And all right, so if we go to texture, import, and I'll just go to my desktop here and we'll load that up. So if I want to make something like this real quick, we'll go over a couple different methods to kind of create. We'll do some ZModeler stuff and we'll do some Boolean stuff. That'll be kind of fun, I think. So let's make this. So I'm going to go hit Z to go out of the spotlight here. Excuse me, I'm still waking up. So I'm going to go to, you can go to any primitive you want to, because usually what I'm doing is I'll drag out a primitive here, I'll go into edit mode, and then when I go into make polymesh 3D, I'll usually hop down here to initialize and I'll do a Q cube, and that just gives me a really simplified cube. Now it does make it smaller, so sometimes what I'll also do is go to deformation unify, and that just makes it ZBrush primitive size. I'm going to hit X to go across X symmetry, which is toggling this transform X symmetry on. And I'm going to turn my floor on just to make sure I know which way is forward. So there's that blue line going forward, and you can actually see it a little bit better in R8. So we're in good shape here. So on this one, you can turn perspective on if you need to match up, like a reference image or something, but I don't think we'll really need it. And I generally tend not to model hard surface stuff with perspective on. So if I want to save this view, let's go to document. We can use movie but I'm going to go ahead and use document here. So I'm going to take my document menu over here, go to ZapLink properties, and we'll just store a custom one. So now if I move this thing out of the way, I can hit custom one, and it'll snap right back. Hey, no problem. Thanks for showing up, everybody. How about them Booleans? Yeah, we'll go over some Boolean stuff today. I think that'll be fun, and maybe some other stuff that I haven't gone over yet in my YouTube channel. Hey, Yarv, thanks for showing up. Man, I can't get enough water this morning. So we got our cube laid out. So let's go ahead and model this thing real quick, and then we'll kind of have a little bit of fun doing our own version here. So there's a lot of primitives on here, so let's go ahead and do some of that work. So what you can do is now you can go, if you go BI brush insert, now they have a new insert multi-mesh primitives and primitives H. Primitives H is going to have holes in the back, and you'll also notice instead of a bunch of primitives sitting out here like cubes and circles or whatever, if you go to insert multi-mesh primitives now they're all loaded up into one tool here, so you can kind of move these things around. Speaking of this, there is a, oh boy, let me go through my notes again. So that was a union mesh. Sorry, I haven't gone through all this stuff yet. So part of the reason why I like teaching things and doing tutorials is it really cements it in my head where all this stuff is. So some of the stuff's going to be a little bit, I haven't used it a ton yet, so I forget where some of these things are. So bear with me with all the new stuff here. Let's see, continuous stroke, insert multi-mesh. There we go. Okay, so preferences interface. Again, I got to go through my notes here. So if you go to preferences, interface, and you do the IMM viewer, there's going to be an auto show and auto hide. So whenever you click an IMM viewer, if you toggle this off, it won't push down from the top. And also, if you go to this placement, you can stick it on the right side, left side, and all that good stuff here. So you can kind of move this thing around if you want to change the placement or have it not show up at all. With that selected, we can go ahead and let's drag a cube on the top here. So here's insert cube, which is going to be, if we do this one, and we drag right down the middle here, and let's drag it right down the middle, hold on shift. So that's going to be that polarized cap one with all these extra lines on it. If you don't like that one, you can hit W, and then you can just go through and start picking any one of these if you want to. So I'm going to do, whoops, insert cube. It's a little simplified cube, just like the one I dragged out first, and we'll start with that one there. So let's hit custom one, and with the new Gizmo, you no longer need to hit WER to move, scale, and rotate. You can, if you hit Y, that'll toggle back to the transpose, and then you can hit Y again to toggle back to the Gizmo, or you can just turn this thing off up here. But now you just need to hit W or E or R because the Gizmo has all three things at once. You can also make your own custom Gizmo. I went over that. I'm going to keep spamming this link. Just warning you. If you go to the ZBrush 4R8, what's new? I start with the Gizmo. We go through all the Gizmo functionality, and then we go into how to make a custom Gizmo. I did a really cute one where there was fingers pointing. And then if you keep going past that, you'll go to all the Boolean stuff that I've gone over. And again, if I miss any questions or anything that's happening on the chat, I've got 3 chats going right now, so if I miss something, I apologize in advance. I try and hit all the questions and stuff, but hey everybody, thanks for showing up all the way from Poland. I need to go check Poland out. I haven't gone over there yet. I've seen some good stuff. What's the best way to learn the brushes for a noob? If you were just talking about basic brush functionality, go to that playlist I just sent out and go to Intro to ZBrush Part 1, and that'll take you through all of the a lot of the basic Z brushes. There are some new brush functionality that we'll go over today that I haven't gone over yet on my YouTube channel, but we'll definitely check that out. And adding detail and mesh already model in 3D specs, recommend Z-remeshing or Dynameshing to add detail. You can do a lot of new stuff, so keep watching, and we'll go over how to detail stuff. Even if you did, a lot of the things I'm going to be doing, you could model in 3D Studio Max or Maya or Fusion 360 or whatever, and then you can take it into ZBrush now. If you want to Dynamesh something, that'll, give you your new mesh, and then you can do whatever you want to with it. But now with the new live Boolean system, you can continue just to detail the hell out of your object with all sorts of cool stuff. Bringing your custom menus and hotkeys, it reverted to the 4R7 interface. That's a good one, and there probably is a way around importing your menus into 4R8 without having to remake them, but I was too nervous to do that. Whenever a new point release comes out for ZBrush, I do like to recreate everything from scratch. I'll just take screenshots. Like, here's my custom menu here. I just took a screenshot of it and just recreated it. Just because I don't want to have any weird stuff carrying forward, or if there's incompatibilities or inconsistencies with any old stuff that I had, I really didn't want to. And even with my own custom menu here, so if I go to Alt-E is my custom, oops, actually, do we even, okay. Yeah, so Alt-E is my custom brush menu that I have set up that I like to use. I just remade them all from scratch. I didn't want to deal with that possible inconsistencies with old stuff. So I'm not sure how to bring in anything without it being a little bit weird. So I would suggest remaking your stuff. I hate for that to be the answer there, but that's what I'm doing just to play it safe. Start to learn Substance Painter. What is your experience with Substance Designer? Is it necessary for character design? No. Is it awesome? Yes. If you go to my playlist here, you can go, there's a Substance Designer Quick Start as well as a Substance Painter Quick Start. Substance Painter Quick Start's a little bit dated, so is Substance Designer Quick Start, but check that out. And that'll kind of, and also, if you Google, I'll Google it for you. Let's see, Pavlovich GDC 2015. So when I went to GDC, I gave a presentation. The name is a little bit misleading. It's called Remaking the Art of Halo 2 for Xbox One. That's not really what it's about. That's about 15 minutes of it. The rest of me is me rambling about how the future is going to work. But there's a lot of there's old Substance Designer stuff in there because I was using Substance Designer a long time ago, back before it was cool. I also did I was at Substance Days last year, and I did a couple master classes with that thing. The hotkeys thing, again, is just, for setting my hotkeys, I would go through here. Even these brushes that I bring in with my startup, like Move Accu, Mask Outer, Mask Inner, Base Primitives, all of these things I remade just from scratch. And I also just go through here, and I'm like, okay, what do I use? I use a clay brush, Control-Alt-C, and then clay buildup, Control-Alt-Tab, and then Alt-B, and then I just keep going down the list and just assigning my hotkeys. It takes a couple minutes, but like I said, I'm just starting up new. Alrighty. No, I'm streaming today. I probably shouldn't. My brain's a little out of it, but cool. Well, I'm glad. Yeah, I mean, you can for sure try and load up your custom UI and stuff. But like I said, just play it safe. Okay, so we've got our guy here. Let's go ahead and go custom one. And then now, if this pivot was off somewhere else and you want to have it kind of snap to the middle, all you got to do is hold down Alt, and that unlocks this pivot thing here. And I do have X symmetry turned on, so if I hold down Alt and then I hit go to Unmatched Mesh Center, it's going to go to the, I explained this, it's going to go to the Unmatched Mesh Center for each side of the mesh. So what I need to do is hit X to toggle that off, and then hold down Alt, and then we'll hit Unmatched Center, and then we can hit X again, and then it'll go back to the middle. The reason it does this is if we turn off X and we move this over to the right, and then we do a quick deformations mirror, and then mirror and weld, and we have X turned on, right? So if we go into ZModeler, which for you guys will be BZM, and we can go to like QMesh or single poly, we just like start modifying this with X turned on. There we go. So now when I hit the gizmo here, if I have X turned off and I go to Unmatched Mesh Center, it's going to go to the unmatched, let me get rid of this. It's going to go to the unmasked mesh center of these individual objects here, which is, treating them like one object with one bounding box. If I have X turned on and then I hold down Alt and tap this, it goes to the local unmatched mesh center for each side. So that makes sense, right? Where it kind of gets a little bit weird is if this thing is in the middle and then you have X turned on and then you go to Unmatched Mesh Center, it's going to shoot it off over to the right. It's going to go to the right side and left side Unmatched Mesh Center. So just something to be aware of. So let's go back here, and we'll Shift Z to turn this back on, and now we can just kind of stretch this thing out. So this thing needs to have, I guess we can use scale here. So this thing needs to go here. And I guess if you want to, you can do, let's do Shift Z. We'll go into, well, if we go into solo mode, this is still part of our original subtool because we did an insert mesh brush. I'm going to just go to my custom menu here. I'm going to go to split masked points, and now I'm working with this one. When we're doing Boolean stuff, what I like to do is, like, if this is going to be our start group Boolean, and now, just for a quick demonstration, just so you know what I'm talking about. If I have this one selected, let's turn polyframe off, and we make this a subtractive mesh, and then I move this in. It's not going to do anything at first because we don't have the live Boolean system turned on. If I touch this little button up here, now we're in live Boolean mode, and now this thing will behave like a live Boolean. So we can kind of just push this in here. We can scale it up. We can control shift and or just hold on control, really, because you can just control this back. And now we have live Booleans working. If you assign that to a hotkey, I have that assigned to Alt-R, so I can just do live Boolean on and off. If you want to have it on and keep modifying these things, you can turn on polyframe, and that'll give you kind of a hatched view of what you're working on. As well as, if you just hit solo, you can kind of just see what's going on. You can turn polyframe on, you can kind of mess with these. So I unmasked already, so now I can have a live Boolean turned on. I can have it hatched if I want to. I can go out of solo mode here. And now I can just go through here. We can also, all of these modified at once. We can go to geometry, dynamic subdiv. We'll go ahead and turn that on. And we'll do QGrid just to kind of turn that up, and we'll change our coverage so we can kind of soften those transitions. And now we can, again, it's live. It's all just giving you a representation of what it's going to look like when you do your final union mesh. You'll be able to change all that good stuff. So now that we talked about that, the reason I brought that up is, let's go ahead and undo back to where we just had that one cube sitting there. So the reason why, when I do another insert mesh brush, we'll go to a BI brush insert. We'll go to the live Boolean here. And I still like hitting M because I can see them all really quick, but you can use this one up here, of course. If we take this one here, so this one's already subtractive. So because it's subtractive, if I just drag on another one here, let's go to the side. It's going to go ahead and just insert that one. So these are all just be a bunch of insert subtractive stuff. Now, the reason why I bring this up is if I was on this one here and I insert a mesh brush here. Let's see. So I've got the cube. I do my insert mesh brush, and then I want to split it off. So if I go into solo mode here, if I do split mask points, which I usually do, because if I split mask points, now I'm working on the subtool I want to work on. However, it's going to keep this one at the top and take my one I inserted on the bottom. So what I usually do, if I have a start group here, what I prefer now is to keep my start group alone. And I also don't like dragging on new insert mesh Booleans onto that thing. But if for some reason I do, I can go to brush, insert, base primitives here. So you can just drag a capsule on there or something. So if I now drag this out on this one, I'll do split unmask points. That'll leave my start group alone, and then I just need to turn that start group off. So now I can make that subtractive, and I can push this, select it, and now I can push this one in and out. So I don't know if that's relevant to anybody here, but that's a thing. But we don't need any of this stuff, so we'll go ahead and delete that. And we'll go ahead and go into solo mode here, and we'll isolate this top one here, and then let's go to delete hidden. So let's go ahead and hit custom one again. We'll hit Shift Z to bring this back. This one I actually want to be additive, and we'll go ahead and I'm going to hold down Alt, and I'll just shoot that to the mesh center. And now you're going to see it's kind of skewed. I'm just going to hold down Alt, and I'm going to hit this reset. Go back to world, and there we go. So now we'll go back to custom one here, and we'll keep manipulating this thing. So we'll push this thing here, plop that right on there, and now we've got this thing divided up. And I'm modeling this thing really slowly because I'm really terrible at ZModeler, but also because I'm explaining a lot of stuff. So let's do a mirror and weld. We'll get this thing. If I don't want these edges in here right now, I can do insert single edge loop, hold down Alt, and we just get rid of that one. And now we can start modifying this. So if I go into solo mode here, let's go ahead and control. Now, here's a cool thing. So if I control drag, that'll mask that bottom, and then you can control tap and invert that mask. Now, if you control drag and then hold down Alt, that'll go ahead and unmask just what you were dragging on. So I use that a bunch. I'm sure Paul Gabriel's brought that up a lot because that's a new feature. And so now we got this one, we've got this one, and let me bring up. Just another image over here so I can kind of see it a little bit better. Cool. That is not my product key. I'm not sure what that is. It's not my serial number or anything, so it doesn't really do much. how to start UV mapping in ZBrush. We've gone over that a couple times, but just real quick, you can go over here to Z plugin, and you can open up UV master. And if we wanted to UV this thing, let's say, we can go hit unwrap, hit flatten, and now we've got UVs for it. It's pretty easy. Of course, there's some caveats to that, but sword cover model max brought to ZBrush. Like to add a dragon detail. Should I remesh it or dynamesh it for sculpting details since it's turbo smooth? Kind of depends on how much you want to do to it. If you want to do a lot of, I mean, if it's nice even quads, then just go ahead and subdivide it. If you're not going to be changing the silhouette a whole bunch, like just pulling stuff out of it. If it's just going to be like relief detail or scales and stuff, you can just subdivide it. If you're going to be doing a bunch of crazy stuff to it, then Dynamesh might work. But then, Dynamesh is also going to, if it's really close together, it might meld it into one mesh. So in that case, you can Z-remesh it to get nice even topology and then project back to your original, and then you can subdivide and continue sculpting. So a lot of different options depending on what you're going for. Let's see. Cool, and cool. All right, so we got this thing going here. Now, if we want to go ahead and pull these two top ones off, I can go over here, I can alt-tap these and then Q-mesh a single poly, or I could have probably just Q-mesh a single poly there. So we'll go ahead and block that out. So let's go ahead and make some feet. Let's make some eyeballs for this guy. Now, if we want to go ahead and do Booleans for this, we can go ahead and have this one select. I'm going to go to let's go to my custom menu, Alt-EM, and I'm just going to grab some cylinder 12s, and let's go ahead and drag these out onto my, let's go document here. There we go. So I got, we'll have this cube turned on. I'll go out of solo mode, and I can go ahead and just drag his eyeballs out, and we'll just kind of lightly reposition these things here. And now we can uniformly scale them down, and we can push these in. So these will be our eyeball placeholders here. Now, of course, if I want these to be a subtractive mesh, all I got to do is go over here, and we'll do split unmasked points here, and then we'll set that to subtractive. And now we've got a little subtractive Boolean for the eyeballs. Let's go ahead and put his beak on there. I suppose for the beak, we can just use a cone. So I'm going to go to, I don't know if the insert primitives even have a cone. It doesn't. So let's make our own. I'm going to go out of edit mode here. We'll grab a Polymesh 3D, we'll grab a cone, drag that out on our canvas, hit edit mode, snap to the front. And now what you can do is you can still hit B, create insert mesh, and we'll make a new insert mesh here. You can also go over here to the brush menu now. You go to create. There's a whole bunch of interesting things in here. You can do a 3D one if you do from mesh. Let's go ahead and if you want to like do another view of this cone or something, you can go up here to brush, and then you can do create insert mesh, and you can go ahead and append it, and that'll go ahead, and you can skip that, and now you can append that to your new insert mesh, the one that you have selected still. So there's a couple new options for that. But now that we have that, we can go ahead and put our chick back on there, and now we can just go ahead and insert that onto my cube here. So we're in X symmetry. We'll go to our new brush. We'll select that first cone, and we can just drag that out right down the middle. And now we can kind of reposition this. Let's go ahead and reset that so we can just pull this straight down. Now this is in the middle of my mesh. I don't know how accurate this drawing is, so I'm going to assume that this beak here is supposed to be X-centered. Now I can turn on perspective. You can hit P or hit this dynamic perspective. This perspective here looks better without it. So we've got that there. Let's go ahead and do another. Again, if I want to keep this cube as my start group, I'm going to do a split unmasked points, then I'll shoot my beak here. We can do two versions of this beak. We can do one that cuts in, and we can kind of inflate, and then we can do another version that kind of fits in there for our Booleans, but we'll go ahead and leave that alone for now. Let's go back to my custom menu here, and again, I'm just going to grab that cylinder 12. Of course, again, you can just go to brush, insert primitives, and then you can hit any of these, here's an inset cylinder, cylinder's no edges, cylinder inner loop, that has a little loop around it, all that good stuff. But we'll stick with this one. And I want to put these down here on the bottom here, so I'm going to throw some legs on there. So let's see how these things line up. These line up good enough, and I can go ahead and just stretch these out. Looks like they're a little big, so I'm going to uniformly scale these down. And I'll go ahead and Alt reset this, and then I can just pull these back here. And you're going to see my floor is moving around. In ZBrush, the floor is usually stuck to the bottom of your lowest subtool here, so that's where all that's coming into play here. So we've got our feet on there, and let's go ahead and let's insert some feet here. So I'm going to go to Alt-EM, and we'll go ahead and grab a cube. turn on polyframe, and we'll go into solo mode. We'll hit Shift Z to get rid of that. And now we're just kind of inserting these meshes here. So we've inserted on the bottom here. We'll hit W, and now we'll go to polyframe, bring this back, and we'll go back and snap back here, and we'll put our feet in here. Now I'm assuming that when I pull these toes out, I am going to have to round that back out. So I'm going to kind of keep that rounded back towards the back. That'll make more sense when I get there. But we'll go ahead and stretch these things out and kind of position these feet vaguely where they're supposed to be. And these will probably end up being centered. So if I invert that mask, we can go ahead and mask that beak out. Now I can kind of position these legs a little bit better. So I'll put the legs right in the middle of those feet, and I've got the beak right there. And if I want to go ahead and split these up, you're going to see these are all separate polygroups here. These ones look similar. If I hit Control W, that'll give you separate ones. So now at this point, what I can do is I can go ahead and do a group split, and then I'll go ahead and do split into separate polygroups. You could also split into similar parts, but since they're all polygroups now, not a big deal. So now I've got all these separate subtools here that we can start modeling on. Not going to move individual points with the new Gizmo. There's some interesting ways that you can do that. One of the ways is if we go into polyframe mode, we'll go into solo here. You know, obviously you can mask individual points. So you can like mask these ones. And now if we go to, let's hold down Alt, and we'll just reset this, and we'll shoot that to my unmasked mesh border. And now you can just, you know, model these individual points. You can mask an individual point along the top. ZModeler is also a good one if you want to just grab. You can do move by brush radius or infinite depth or whatever you want to do. So you can grab individual points like that, or you can use the move brush with a small radius here. And you can also do, if I hit W and I go into this gear here, you can add deformers and stuff. So you can add a deformer. Update the masking to include symmetrical parts. Oh yeah, let me turn off symmetry here. So now we can do our deformer here, and now you can add more divides in here. So this isn't individual points, but you can now, if you have, it's kind of like a lattice deformer, you can go in here and you can hold down Control, and you can, if you hold down Control Alt, that'll unmask everything except for the ones you masked here, and now you can use your Gizmo to kind of, to kind of just move this stuff around. So now you can go in here and manipulate individual lattice points if you want to, just by masking and unmasking. There we go. So now we can utilize all of these things. So here's your Y divides, your Y smoothness at the fall off, and then if you want X, Y, and Z symmetry like that. So anyway, let me go ahead and hit the gear icon here, and we'll go ahead and delete that. Go solo mode here, custom 1. So still modeling these feet here, so I'm going to alt tap this foot, and I'm going to select that, and we got polyframe. So I'm going to go ahead and do insert single edge loop. Let's do insert multiple edge loop, and I know that'll snap a line right down the middle here. And then I can go ahead and bevel this edge loop complete here, and that'll go ahead and give me 3 toes. And it looks like this cube is still a little bit narrow here, so I'm going to do scale this out, and I kind of do want to move these feet out just a little bit. So I know the concept I'm using. Let's go ahead and hit X there. I know the concept that I'm using is probably super accurate, but I'm going to go ahead and make some slight modifications just to kind of even these spaces out a little bit more. So now we can go back in here. We can alt tap these feet. I'm going to turn off live Boolean, and now I can just kind of do some poly modeling here. So now I can go through here and do QMesh, a single poly. And if I want these to be individual toes, I might need to separate these things out a little bit more. So I'll go to bevel edge loop complete. We'll give it a little bit of space in between there. And now I can do QMesh single poly. We'll pull out some toes here. Now if I pull one out and I want to make them all the same size, I can just tap. And that'll go ahead and make me the same size feet. And looks like they kind of dip down at the end there. I can also mask and invert that mask. Or again, you know, you probably want to do the whole mask and hold down Alt, and that'll go ahead and give you a little bit of a quicker result there. Now, if I want to go ahead and if I do an insert single edge loop now, I've got to go all the way through here, and now my edge loops are going to be kind of off a little bit because I don't know what I'm doing. So what I can do instead is just go to the side, hold down Control Shift, and do a slice, and then you can slice through all of them. And now you can mask these points here. You can just kind of slope those down a little bit here so we can kind of give those a nice little curve. Now the back is supposed to be rounded, so if I hit D right now, it's going to give you, now ZRA, it's going to be like, do you want to activate dynamic subdivision? Because sometimes when you hit D and you're on like a Dynamesh or something that's really high resolution, you might realize, ZBrush really slowed down. Why is it doing that? It's because you accidentally hit dynamic by hitting D. So it's just toggling that on and off. Shift D toggles it off. So now if we just do, go to our crease menu here, and it'll drop our crease tolerance down. So now this is the kind of look we're getting for these feet. However, that's not too bad here, but if I want to round this back end out, I can try going in here and doing like a crease edge and then uncreasing these edges here. But now I've got to finagle these lines around, so if I go into solo mode here, you know, I can kind of like pull these things into kind of a cylinder shape, maybe. That's kind of a pain, so what I'm going to try and do instead is we'll do Shift D here. Let's go ahead and make these into one line back here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert multiple edge loops, so we can put one right down the middle here. Oops, unmask first. There we go. And now I'm going to go ahead and do a collapse edge, and I'm just going to collapse all these edges back to the middle here. So now what I can do, and it should still smooth okay. Yeah, we're still fine. So now what I can do is I can, let's bridge two connected polys here. We'll do specified resolution, specified curvature. I want it to be 100%. 8 is probably fine. Align to normal I may not have to check on. We'll see. Yeah, it's fine. Oh, another thing you want to do is triangle sides. So when you do this and you smooth down the middle, it'll be nice and, you know, connected. So now we have that rounded out there. We can hit D, and we'll go down to our crease tolerance here and crease that. Now if you want to make some extra changes, we can just do a crease edge individually and kind of clean this up a little bit. There we go. Feet. Everybody still good? Can I get into UV mapping alone in Maya, or do I have to have the knowledge of the whole program to do it? No. You don't have to know anything if you don't want to. But yeah, you can just learn the UV parts of Maya. Nothing wrong with that. Same thing in ZBrush. If you just want to UV in ZBrush, you just need to learn probably UV master. It's probably the only thing you need to know. How do you use fall off in local symmetry mode? You talking about like brush fall off? Or like the lattice deformer fall off? If you do lattice deformer or any of the deformers here, it's going to say it doesn't work with symmetry, but it does. All you got to do is tell it. If we go into deformer mode here, you just have to tell it these end ones here, X symmetry. 2 is mirror, so just set it to 2, and now it's mirrored deformers here. So now all you got to do is when you do this side here, it'll do the other side just fine. But that's just something you need to set up with the deformers, because the deformers have their own local. So you can do symmetry. It doesn't have to be through ZBrush, or it doesn't have to be through your object symmetry, which is kind of nice. You can do your deformer symmetry. Depends if you have the knowledge of UV unwrapping in any software. I would agree with that. I mean, I personally still use Hedis, the Hedis in Maya, just to shoot things over a lot of the times, although Maya's new UV tools are great. But any 3D program you use is basically going to be, you know, cut along these edges and pelt this or flatten this or relax this or optimize this, and you can pin edges and make them straight and optimize within it, and then you can grab by shell and move it, or you can hit auto layout, or you can, in Modo, you can set up quadrants and you can snap them to, you know, Atlas quadrants and all that good stuff. So how long I've been working on ZBrush? Since ZBrush 2.1, I think. So was that 13, 14 years ago? I forget. But yeah, so we got some feet there. We got this going. We're in good shape. So let's go ahead and we'll put a cylinder right on his back there. So we'll go ahead and grab a cylinder 12 here. We'll go to back, and we can insert it on anything here. So we'll just go right down the middle here, and we'll go to split unmask points. And now I think we're in good shape. Here's our cylinder. I'm going to hit Shift D to go ahead and turn dynamic on for this, because I'm not quite ready for it here. So that's about in the middle of my object. So let's go ahead and do custom 1 here. And we'll go ahead and scale this out so I can see it. And it looks like it's a little bit thick here. There we go. And I'm going to go ahead and reset this so I can move it straight down. There we go. So we're in good shape. We can go ahead and soften this thing. So I'm going to Alt tap this one here, and let's go ahead and we'll go ahead and turn on D for our dynamic, and we'll do our crease tolerance here. And now we can go through here. We can do like crease edge. We can hold down Alt. And we can uncrease these edges here. Now, if I do want to modify these things to kind of round these things out, we can go into solo mode here. Let's hit Shift D. And the first thing I'm noticing is I probably need to crease that. And I also probably need to insert a single edge loop here. And then we'll do our whole Control Alt mask. And then we can kind of move these things around. Oops. There we go. So we got that. Those are rounded. Those kind of fit, I think. There we go. So looks like one more thing we need to make. So I'm going to turn everything else back on, and with this cube selected, if we want to go ahead and round this cube out, and if we're inserting stuff onto it, it will inherit these properties. But let's go ahead and go to our cube at the very top here, and we'll do a geometry. Turn on dynamic subdiv. If we want to do a smooth subdivision, we can make that smoother or not. In this case, what I'm probably going to do is do a Q-grid, and then we'll do our coverage here so we can kind of just round these corners out here. Now, Q-grid is going to throw us some extra geometry we probably don't need for some of these lines here. So if you do want to go ahead and turn those off, we can go ahead and do that. We can go in here to insert single edge loop, hold down Alt. We can get rid of those extraneous ones. I'm going to keep this one down the middle just for mirroring purposes, but now if I hit D, it'll still maintain that same shape, but it won't put in a bunch of extra edges where we don't need them. So there's our Q-grid here, and again, if Q-grid is off, it's just going to average my vertices, but then with Q-grid on, it's going to kind of weight my topology towards the corners here, and then you can change your coverage, you can make it chamfer or bevel or whatever you want to do. So just a quick way to kind of round your shapes out there. Cool, thanks for showing up, everybody. And again, if I miss any questions, just keep hollering them out. I apologize in advance. Favorite improvement in R8 is probably the live Booleans. But there's a lot of cool stuff. I like the Gizmo. I like the VDM, which I haven't gone over yet, but the vector displacement stuff's pretty neat. Student license, I think when I had to buy another license, but I think there is an educational one, maybe. Was it 2.5? Maybe I started on a 2.5. I don't remember. It was at Ringling. I think it was like sophomore year or junior year of Ringling. So 2003, maybe. Maybe that was it. Maybe, yeah, I think it was 2.5. It was right after they stopped being just the 2.5D kind of illustration thing. Does it tweak the points based on screen space? Yeah, infinite depth. So basically what that was, if I do Shift D to get out of that mode and I do Shift Z, basically with ZModeler here, so if you do move by infinite depth, that will just go all the way straight down your object and allow you to move all of these points infinitely deep is basically what it's doing. So any point you have, select this, we select this one here, and we do infinite depth, it should move all of these points all the way across. Is all that is. Instead of having to go to the side here and like Control Alt masking and then using your Gizmo to kind of do that, you can just do infinite depth. Let's see. Why can't you deform our partially hidden mesh? Man, you're getting to stuff I haven't even tried yet. Let's see. So if we take this one here, get rid of this, and then we want to do a deformer on it. So I can do W. We'll go out of X symmetry here, and we'll do. Let's do a bend arc. Mesh is partially hidden, actually canceled. I don't know. I guess you can just mask it and then deform these unmasked parts. Is there a way to uncrease the edge used in the crease function assumed in ZModeler with the dots appear in the model? Wasn't able to find out yet. Is there a way to uncrease the edge used in the crease function in ZModeler? Yeah, so if you go through here, you can go through here. Now, if I want to uncrease these ones, I just go to crease. You can do, is there even an uncrease? I assume there is, maybe not. But what I do is crease, and then when you hover over an edge, you'll see there's crease edge, and then Alt is uncrease. You can just hold down Alt, and you can just go through here and uncrease these things to kind of round those out if you want to. And same thing with insert. edge loop here. So if I go to insert single edge loop, and I can add some single edge loops in here, if I want to delete these, instead of going in here to like delete edge loop complete or edge loop partial, what I'll usually end up doing, just keep it on insert single edge loop and then just hold down Alt, because you're going to see insert edge loop, Alt is delete loop, and then Shift is to maintain a constant width. So you can just hold down Alt and get rid of those things, as opposed to switching to another thing. If I want to uncrease these things, I can go to crease edge loop partial, and then I can hold down Alt, and that'll do the opposite. It'll uncrease edge loop partial, that kind of thing. But usually when I'm creasing, I'll do a crease with a crease tolerance just to do most of the creasing for me. And then I'll do a little bit of cleanup work with my creases here like this. It's like, oh, don't want that crease. So crease edge, hold down Alt, and then I'm good to go. So we have X turned on for that one. Let's go ahead and do a quick mirrored well, just to make sure those are simpatico. Okay, so we need to do one more thing here. I'm going to go to solo mode here. Let's go to Alt-E-M. We'll grab our cube, and we'll make sure we're out of dynamic, and now we can just drag that on. The reason I went out of dynamic mode, it doesn't matter what you're dragging, what subtool you're using to drag on, as long as something's visible, it'll snap to that surface. So now I can go ahead and do split unmask points here, go into solo mode, and now I've got these ones. We'll do Shift-D, and then we'll go ahead and scale these ones down. So they're already kind of positioned where I want them, and we have X turned on, so we can kind of scale this out. And now here's the other thing too. So if I turn on local symmetry, it will scale along that local axis. If I don't have that turned on, it will scale away and towards that center point here. So I'll just turn on LSym, and now I can just kind of scale this wing in here. Now for this one, if I do a crease tolerance here, it'll go ahead. If I hit D, it looks the same. However, if I go in here now and I do like crease edge and hold down Alt, that'll increase that edge. And that's about the shape of that wing, give or take. I think that'll work. So Shift Z here, going to solo, and now we've got our little chicken here. So that's the first part, the first step. Now you're going to see as I'm moving this thing around, it's like, why is it making everything disappear? There's a little dynamic over that solo. If I accidentally hit that, that'll turn that on. So now it'll be stable here. Had to turn FiberMesh into a game-res model, for example, a beard. Yeah, so when I do FiberMesh, let's go ahead and take this one. We'll mask this top here. So if we go down here to FiberMesh, and we preview that, and let's go into solo mode here. So, you know, that gradient is causing that. It's actually kind of cool. Let's help this out a little bit. I'm going to take this cube, and I'm going to duplicate it off, and we'll take this one, unmask it. So now with this one here, I can add some subdivision levels. You know what, let's remesh this thing, that'll be fun. So go to ZRemesher here, we'll do double adaptive size down to 0, and we'll just get some new topology, a little bit more topology there. So now I can mask off this top. It's still gonna do a gradient down the side because it's so low res, but it'll kind of constrain it a little bit better. So now we'll do a preview here. And we got our fuzzy cube. So if we go to modifiers here, we can change our max fibers and our coverage here. Now, if you're exporting this as hair strands, what I would do, let's make this so we can see it a little bit better. I'm going to change my base. I don't have to do that. I can just turn base colorize and tip colorize down, and that'll inherit the white color that's on there. But if we have this now, if we hit BPR, it's going to kind of round these out and smooth them, because in our BPR settings here, you're going to see when I hit BPR, it's going to subdivide them twice. Then it's going to give it 4 sides, so they turn into like little fat cubes. And our radius is 1, so we can play with this thing if we want to. You can also export these as curves, and then when you hit export curves, there's a lot of different formats. And that's fine. There's a lot of different formats in here. You can do OBJ, Maya, Lightwave, Modo, and the FiberMesh Guides raw 32 bits floating points file, whatever that is. So feel free to use that for curves if you'd like. If you did want to export these as hair cards, probably what I would do is profile of 1, and again, it's been a while since I've done this. I usually don't use these for hair cards, but you certainly can. I think if you just export this as an OBJ, it should work. So if we hit, let's change our max fibers down and our coverage up. So if you want to make these some big fat hair cards here, and we can also change the length here, and we can do segments. We can up those so we can get a little bit more resolution out of our segments here. Now, another cool thing is if we go in here to our texture, we can go ahead and add textures to these things. So you can import any sort of texture that you want, and that will automatically give them UVs. If for some reason you forget to give it UVs or forget to add a texture to this, what you can do is, like say we hit accept and then we go over here and we've got our FiberMesh sitting here, and it's like, oh, cool. Oh, wait a minute. When I go to export these things, if we go to, actually, let's go to our textures here. So go to texture map here, and we grab that texture again. You're going to say, we don't have any UVs. Crap. So I can go to UV map here, and under create, there's a fiber UV. So that'll, again, go from root to tip and go ahead and throw UVs on there. So our texture map works fine. Transparent's already on. If it wasn't, if you imported a texture, just turn transparent to 1 for any areas that are black. It'll go ahead and make that. So I believe if you just export, you can hit make polymesh 3D first, but you can also, I think you can just export that as an OBJ, and it'll just export the fibers as meshes. How did you switch from transpose line to pivot? Just hit Y. It's the Y key. If you hover over this new Gizmo thing up here, you'll see Gizmo 3D is Y, and you can just hit W for this. Then if you hit Y, that'll toggle back to transpose and then back again. Can you change the font size for the user's interface now? I think you can, pretty sure. I haven't done it yet, but if you go to your, I want to say interface maybe, I'll let you guys find that out. There's got to be some way. I'm pretty sure there is a way to do that. They've also updated the language stuff, I believe, because I know ZBrush Core had a lot of different language options, so now there's a ton of language options you can customize in here. That's kind of cool. Quick save utilities somewhere. If it does exist, I'm sure it's under preferences somewhere. I'm just not sure off the top of my head. I'm working on a laptop monitor right now, so. Some of the most creative ways you've used R8's new features. I have not used them in any creative way necessarily. I've just used them in all the usual ways. The creative stuff usually comes after I use it a lot, which I haven't had a ton of time to do, but I don't know, I'll get there. Maybe I'll do something more creative in the future. VDMs bug out if you insert in the middle of an object while in symmetry mode. Yeah, just like when you insert an alpha along symmetry, you've got to make sure it lines up perfectly. So in that case, you can probably use VDM. If you do need to maintain symmetry, you can do VDM down the middle without symmetry turned on, and then you can smart resim, or you can mirror and weld. Cool. What's special in your CGMA course? That's just individual feedback, basically. The CGMA course is a lot more concise. It doesn't cover everything that we go over in the Intro to ZBrush series, part 1, part 2, and part 3, but it is a little bit more fast-paced. I've re-recorded a lot of the videos, so it's a little bit more concise, and just so when we go in, it's a 6-week course, so we just really go through a lot of stuff. Really, most of it is just getting personalized feedback. If you're not interested in that, then probably not interested in the CGMA course, but it's kind of up to the person. Yep. You're going to do an update your Intro to ZBrush, teach the new features. Yes, let me keep spamming this link. If you go to my YouTube channel, we've already got 4 or 8 new features. I've gone through the Gizmo and the new Boolean stuff. My hardware setup's still the same old stuff. If you go to Lumi questions here, I'm still on a really old machine right now. But if you go to my workspace setup video here and you look at the description, that'll give you a link to all the stuff I'm using right now. I'm still mobile setup. I'm eyeballing Threadripper. We'll see how that pans out with the computer manufacturers coming up soon after E3. Edge loop partial and complete. What it's going to do is look at your mesh. This is a good example. Just this mesh we have here. If I go into solo mode here. So if I do, what's a good one? Let's do crease edge loop partial, and I go through and crease that one. It's going to go all the way around because it is just one contiguous line. Let's go ahead and uncrease all here. If you go to crease menu, there is an uncrease all. So, however, if we go to the top here and we do crease edge loop partial here, as soon as it hits a T junction where it goes, here's one line coming in, one line coming in, one line coming in on one point, it'll stop. If you do edge loop complete, it'll force it through. And sometimes edge loop complete goes through places I don't want it to, like in this instance, when I do edge loop complete, it goes through, it goes all the way around here and grabs this edge ring right here. Not really what I was looking for. So sometimes it is better for me to go in here to edge loop partial, and it'll just stop at all the T junctions, and then I can just manually go through and do that. Now, sometimes edge loop complete is good and it does what you want it to, but it's something you got to kind of fill out. But generally speaking, edge loop partial will stop at these little T junctions here, so you can kind of control it a little bit better. But even still, what I'll do for something like this is do my crease tolerance here and hit D and then go in and clean up. And it actually did a lot for me. All I need to do is just grab this one down here, crease edge. There we go. And you can play with that crease tolerance slider to kind of dial in exactly where you want it. But for the most part, I just do a little bit of cleanup with just a simple number like 54, and then flatten surface detail evenly, which doesn't use symmetry. So on a flat object, so there's a couple different ways to do this. If we go ahead and let's go ahead and apply those subdivisions, and we'll go ahead and divide this thing up a little bit more here. So if I go down here to deformation, and we'll just turn a little bit of noise onto this thing here. Actually, we don't need that many points. Let's not go crazy. So we'll go to subdivision level 3 here, and we'll delete higher. So on this one here, what we can do if we want to flatten, like, just flatten one of these faces, let's go ahead and delete lower as well. You can hold down Control, then Alt, and then we can just grab these points here, and you can select any point along this surface here, and you can just use the scale to kind of flatten those out now. You can use H polish, that's another one you can kind of use to kind of flatten out a surface here. There is a flatten brush, you can go to BF and you can use the flatten brush. For ZModeler type stuff, you would probably be manipulating individual points. For sculpting detail, like if we go in here to Dynamesh and just Dynamesh this thing, probably I just use H polish to kind of flatten these things out here, or clip's another one. So instead of using masking and then pulling these all back, you can just use clip and clip them all to a flat surface. Probably something I would do. Redynamesh, or you can also use clip on low res stuff. So we go back to our low res here. Keep going back. Yeah, so here's our noisy surface here. You can just use clip and then clip it back. And then if you want to, you can move these points out or whatever you want to do. Cool. I'm not really doing much today. I'm unprepared. I'm just kind of fielding questions. And I don't have anything. I'm kind of starting this thing. We haven't actually gotten to the Boolean part yet, but we're kind of just doing some questions here. I guess I don't need this FiberMesh one here. We're making this Cubemulchick. Cool. I'm glad the videos are working out so far. Hopefully I'll have a little bit of time this weekend to finish those up. How do I compare the insert mesh brush as opposed to vector displacement maps? What is the real difference in techniques and advantages? Well, the vector displacement stuff, because like if I wanted to insert, and I guess we could do this. Let's see, if I want to, go to Sphere 3D, and we'll hit X symmetry, and we'll go into Make Polymesh 3D, and we'll go ahead and Dynamesh this thing. So, for example, if we go to our vector displacement, we'll go to BC, and there's these new Chisel 3D with some stuff on it. So we take this one here. Now it's all resolution based, so if I don't have a lot of resolution on my mesh, it's not gonna look that good. But now we can kind of put this in. You're gonna see with the vector displacement, we can do undercuts now, and actually goes in here. So if we do the mouth here, we can just drag out a mouth, and it's got the lips, and it's got the little uvula, I think it's called, the little bag in the back of your throat there, and it goes all the way down in there. So in order to use an insert mesh to do this, I suppose you could, you would have to, make this shape and then have it capped and with all the way around with a little mouth bag, and then you could insert it, and then you would have to go through and like sculpt out what you didn't want here. So I'm trying to think if I could just do that really quick. It would just be a lot of extra work in order to get this compatible, but with the vector displacement where it goes, let's see, we'll do this little eyeball here. So instead of having to do that, or I mean, you could, if it is a Dynamesh, you could just insert this brush, Dynamesh it together, and you're good to go. It's the undercuts part that would be a little bit more difficult. You would have to go in and either push back the original sphere to allow this to happen. So it kind of depends. Let's see if this goes the right way here. No, let's go this side. There we go. So yeah, to drag out this ear, you know, you could just insert this ear and then Dynamesh it together. However, if you just have a really high resolution mesh, which is what I do have right now, that'll be. And you can also do insert. You can hold down Alt, and you can flip that visibility. So that's another thing too. If we go to brush insert, I forgot. I do go over it in the videos I just sent out. But if we go to the insert mesh Boolean here, actually, you know what? Let's go to brush insert. We'll go to the model toolkit here. So again, you can grab any one of these, and in the video I think I grabbed this one, and you can just drag this out. Let's go ahead and delete lower here. So you can drag this one out, and you can also hold down Alt and drag it out. So this comes in handy when you're doing like the live Boolean render. So if I'm doing a lot of subtractive meshing, what I'm going to do is append it doesn't really matter. Go into transparent here, and I'm just going to do size and just kind of shrink that down. If I set that to subtractive, now what I insert on here will automatically be a subtractive mesh. So I can go in here to my document, my brush, depth, and if we go ahead and embed that a little bit, as I drag this out, we can have live Boolean turned on, and now that'll go ahead and do my live Boolean. If I want to flip this around, all I got to do is hold down Alt, and that'll go ahead and do my live Boolean. There we go. With the object flipped around. So that comes in handy, and also holding down Alt will flip your vector displacement, so that's interesting too. Now I'm going to go ahead and hit D to do my dynamic preview, and now it'll have nice smooth edges. It's all dynamic, and then brush insert, not machine parts, Boolean here, and we'll just go ahead and choose any one of these cool ones. You can go ahead and insert this, and now they'll just all be. So you can use insert mesh brushes as well as your vector displacement brushes. We can go back to brush, and let's do chisel creature. And now there's all these things. Now this one's set up to be drag rect. Let's go ahead and choose this one. There we go. It's set up to be drag rectangle. However, since it is just a 3D alpha, what you can do is go here to stroke, and I'm sure you guys saw this already. If you go to lazy, your lazy step is set up at 0.4. So if you change this from drag rect to drag dots, you can just drag these things out. And let's go to stroke, move our lazy step down, and that'll put them closer together. Or let's do something that kind of folds over a little bit. Actually, let's do an ear. So if we do these ears here, we'll just put those ears. Let's turn off our floor here. There we go. Now I'm just dragging out a bunch of ears. There is something cool with this. If you hold down, what am I looking for here? If you're very light with your pressure, and then you go really heavy with your pressure, see how it kind of gets larger. There's another cool thing in your brush menu. I think it's under alpha and texture. There's a magnify now. So if I crank this up, now when I go light to heavy, it'll actually kind of inflate your mesh a little bit. So you can kind of get a different effect with magnify turned on. That's a new feature. But anyways, another thing you can do is, let's go ahead and go to our stroke, and we'll crank our lazy step up to like 1-ish. And that'll kind of space them out a little bit more. And I was going to do something else. What was it? I forget. But so there's that, and that stroke, and there's the magnify. Yeah, apparently my brain's not going to work that well today, but we'll get through it. We'll survive. Cool. Hey guys, thanks for showing up. Glad you can make it. Pivot points when creating in Blender base mesh and importing ZBrush, they tend to misalign when using symmetry. I'm not sure. Sometimes when I'm importing something into ZBrush that is not symmetrical, like from Fusion 360, what I'll do is I'll create a symmetrical bounding box around the object and bring it in. If you're doing FBX import, it should do that automatically, but just to play it safe, what you can try doing, if it is putting your object off center a little bit, what you can do is just create a big symmetrical bounding box around your object, import all of that into ZBrush, and then delete your bounding box, and it should be aligned. Because what some ZBrush sometimes does is take your bounding box of your object, and if it's asymmetrical, it's going to be off, so your center line will actually be off from your actual center of your object. Sometimes. Let's see. Insert mesh, add geometry, your subtool. Cool. in terms of retopology, what's the difference between using ZSphere and topology brush? I prefer, like if I was going to retopologize this thing, you can use topology brush here. So like you can go BTO and you can just start topologizing this thing. The difference being you have to kind of just wrangle these. You can hold down Alt and then you can just like continue. I'm not really that good. I've already messed this up. You know, I'm not that good at the topology brush. I prefer a little bit more control, and that's why Z-spheres I'm able to go through here. And if I go to insert Z-sphere here, and of course you're going to want to shoot this thing out of the way. You can do symmetry as well, but I don't think this is symmetrical. So what I'm going to do is I can go in here in my edit topology here. We can make our matte cap pearl dark gray, and now I can go into draw mode. And now instead of having to deal with, let me go see Z-sphere here. This is showing what's going on now. Let me turn off live Boolean. There we go. So don't have live Boolean on. So now we can go through here. We can not only can I go ahead and just start retopologizing this thing, I can hit W and move this thing around now. So that's kind of a cool thing you can do with these for topology, as opposed to the topology brush, which is curve based. So moving those curves around might be a little bit hairier. As well as if I wanted to, say, make some mesh and have it actually bridge across an area, I can do that, whereas topology brush is going to have to kind of stick to the surface. This one I don't have to stick to the surface. So when I hit A here, oh, here's another new feature. When I hit adaptive skin, it automatically switches to Dynamesh. So if you turn Dynamesh down to 0 and then toggle that back on and off, it'll go to your regular stuff. So this is kind of a feature too. So if we do, what am I looking for? Topology here, let's go skin thickness. So now when I hit A with adaptive skin, let's crank that up a little bit more. There we go. So with skin thickness turned on, and then you can change the density to 2 if you want to. So if you have skin thickness and we have Dynamesh at 0, it'll go ahead and preview that. If you turn Dynamesh up, it'll go ahead and give you a preview of the Dynamesh resolution. So I think that's the default now. So just turn that to 0 if you want to go back to the regular adaptive skinning. And there's probably some other differences, but off the top of my head, hey, thanks for showing up. We get new hard surface series with the new tools. Sure. Why not? I just need to sit down and do it. That's probably why not. But yeah, eventually I will. And also, you know, when I'm doing these live streams, I'll be doing more and more examples. Just like, did I delete her already? No, she's still in here. So we're still plugging away on this thing here. I don't usually get a whole lot of time when I'm on my live streams to work on her. I usually end up doing a lot of other stuff, but yeah, we haven't gotten to the detail phase yet, so we're just kind of blocking her out. But if we get rid of this here, you know, get rid of her helmet here. So we're still kind of blocking her in. She's not super detailed yet, but all of her forms are kind of in there. We're rebuilding some stuff, but we're getting really close. We did a little bit of her boot last time on the ZBrush channel. So if you don't know where that is, so here's my YouTube channel that has all my backups for these live streams, and then when I stream for Pixelogic, here's their channel. So I think in episode 17, or maybe the newest one, 18, we go through and we do a bit of work on her boot there. So we haven't detailed it out. A lot of this stuff really comes together when you start going in and doing your wrinkle sculpting and putting in like little buttons and stuff and making it look kind of lived in. Right now it's a little bit sterile, but you know, we're just blocking all the stuff in. We're getting it looking sharp here, so when you go in detail, it'll just be a little bit icing on the cake. So we are, and again, as I'm moving through this thing, we'll of course be using the new features and the new Boolean stuff for sure. But let's go ahead and delete all here. There we go. Okay, we got fibers here. Let's clear some of this stuff out. We've got our weird little creature here. I know, right? Isn't it pretty to look at? So make polymesh 3D is needed because if you want to go in here and we just grab any primitive, so we go out of edit mode here, and we grab any primitive here, like the helix is a cool one. So we go into helix mode. If you want to start sculpting on it immediately, it can't, because it wants to give you the ability to go in here and initialize. So now you can go in here and you can change like the profile radius if you want to change that a little bit around, or the coverage. You can kind of change this. So instead of just bringing it like in other programs, you bring out a primitive, there's a few options you can change, but in ZBrush there's a lot of options you can change with their primitives. So they want to give you the opportunity to kind of like, oh, let's go thick to thin and mess around with this radius maybe. I'll bulge this out. And what else we got? We got Z offset in here. So if you want to make changes into here, it's like, okay, now this is what I want to start with. And now you can go to Make Polymesh 3D, and now you can start modeling. So before you hit Make Polymesh 3D, they want to give you the option to initialize first. Now after you hit Make Polymesh 3D, then it goes to this initialize state, which is just the ZModeler initialize. So I can hit QCube, and now I'm back to ZModeler here. So now I can go QMesh and do all this kind of cool stuff. And then we can like delete. Let's go ahead and delete this one, and then we'll go ahead and like bridge 2 holes, and we'll go ahead and pop these things up. And now, since we got this one here, let's go ahead and QMesh a single poly up, and then we can go ahead and split this point, and we can go ahead and split this point, and then we can go ahead and let's go ahead and alt tag this one, QMesh polygroup all here. And we can pull this back and poke this through, and then we can start doing dynamic preview, and we can go into our crease menu here, kind of start creasing this thing up, and let's see, let's go to crease, crease edge, and we'll kind of clean up our creasing a little bit. It's like, oh, I want these to be curved, and I want this to be curved here. There we go. So now we're just modeling away using ZModeler. And also, if you have these really harsh creases, this is something that comes up in the Boolean stuff too. So while you're Booleaning with this thing, you can, you're going to have really harsh creases here. So let's put something on here. So we got subtool here. Let's go to brush, insert our Boolean thing here, and we'll just drag in something. Doesn't really matter. Now let's go ahead and drag this out, and I'm going to, again, if I want to keep this main mesh as my start brush, what I'm going to do is do the second one, split unmasked points, and now I can do subtractive for that one. So we can turn on our renderer here and just kind of push this back. So right now we've got this nice crispy cutout line here, but the rest of it's kind of faceted, so I can't go back to this one here. And I can go to geometry. It's just dynamic, so I'm going to go ahead and change our smooth divisions up. Now if I change the smooth divisions up, I can make this very smooth, but our creases are still kind of harsh. So that's when you want to go into your crease level here and say, okay, we're smoothing up to 5, let's crease up to 3. And now when we do Shift D and D again, that'll kind of give us a little bevel along those edges there and kind of soften those transitions. Of course, you can crease level up to 4 and tighten them up a little bit. It's kind of up to you, but you're still working dynamically. So when you do go in here and you do like QMesh, a single poly, you can kind of pull this in. Let's do Shift D here. Let's see, QMesh, a poly here. Let's turn off live Boolean here. Yeah, it's one to snap up there. So instead of QMesh, let's go ahead and just do an extrude. And we can kind of just extrude these faces in. Now at this point, you would want to go back in here, and you can like crease what you want to crease on this thing. Like so. Let's uncrease that one. There we go. And then, now that we already have a subtractive mesh here, we can go back into brush, brush insert. There we go. Boolean here. And then, like I said, I hit M, but you can go through here. So if we put this one in there, it's like, you know what? I don't want that one. I want this one here. And we can cycle through this one. It's like, okay, that's a pretty cool one. But if I hit W, what if I want to try some of these other ones out? So you can kind of just drag through here and kind of see if any of these strike your fancy. And that's a cool one. That's a neat one. Let's do this one instead. So now you've got this one, and now I kind of rotate these into place. So you can have very, very low-res meshes, and you don't have to, it's all non-destructive, so you don't have to sit there and go, well, do I want to move these in, or do I want to move these out? Do I want to change the resolution of this to stamp this detail in? It's like, no, I still have this super low mesh here, but I'm just giving you the illusion that it's high quality. Better import FBX or OBJ into ZBrush. I prefer FBX. It gives me a little bit more control, and OBJ sometimes loses some stuff like creasing, and there's some other stuff that FBX brings in that's really useful. I forget what off the top of my head. But also FBX will keep your subtools labeled. So if I was to export this thing as an FBX, it would export all the names. And then if I import it back in, it'll toss your poly paint around as well. OBJ tends to lose your poly paint on import. So FBX will maintain your poly paint on export and import, as well as your individual subtool names, as well as creasing. So FBX is my go-to, but it's kind of up to you. Cool. Is there a difference between a polymesh sphere? Yeah. Yeah, so you can just initialize it basically. Is it possible for ZBrush to easily position new object on a base object, orient the base object face to orient a world? Yeah, I think so. When you with the new Gizmo here, if I go down here to, let's see. Oh, thanks for showing up, Claudio. So if we go here to Cube Mesh Brush, let's go to Polymesh here. So if I go to, let me see, position a new object ready for Boolean on the base object, orient the base object to face oriented world. Yeah, so if I go to like Brush Insert, I think I understand. We'll go to the Model Toolkit here, and we'll grab anything. So now if you drag this out, it is going to inherit, you know, whatever surface normal you're applying this thing to. We'll also get into maybe a little bit of Mesh Fusion stuff, because that's also interesting to use in conjunction with the Boolean stuff. But for this one here, what we can do is, if we have this one, let's go ahead and split mass points here. So now with W, what you can do is you can set this pivot to be wherever you want. So if I hold down, if I just hit home without holding down Alt, that'll go ahead and snap it to the 0, 0, 0 world center axis. If I hit reset, that'll snap it Z forward. Now if I hold down Alt and do it, it'll just move my pivot. So you're going to see, oh, it moved my pivot to home. I held down Alt, it snapped it here. But if you don't hold down Alt, it will go ahead and just rearrange your object wherever that pivot was originally. It'll kind of snap it to Z forward or the world orientation and stuff like that. As far as like, you know, in Maya, they have the, you know, you can go to one surface and it brings that little arrow out, and then you can touch another surface and it'll snap that to that thing. Usually for that type of thing, it's just a matter of having a surface. It's almost like every surface in ZBrush is live. That's not like that. It is basically. So anything that's visible on your screen is a live surface, give or take. It's not quite as harsh as Maya gets with their live surfaces, where everything just wants to snap to it. But it is useful, so you can just kind of inherit the object center when you drag out. So if we go to draw mode here, that'll just grab your object normal. And then if you want to hold down Alt, you can reset this so it's a little bit snapped to here, or you can hold down Alt and Shift and you can just reorient this pivot. So you can see down that number down below, you can kind of do whatever you need to that. And then again, you can just move that to 0, 0, 0 for the pivot on this thing. We'll go ahead and split on mass points. And now at this point, you've got the pivot in there, and then we should be able to do, so with local symmetry on, it will do a mirror and weld on the local symmetry axis. If you turn that off, now it'll shoot it to the other side. Of course, you might have to do a mirror and weld, because ZBrush always likes to do negative X to positive X. So sorry, that was a little bit quick, but you know how I talk. Show us the new snap for, oh yeah, let's talk about that. So here, I'll go back to this thing. So the new chisel brush is cool. We'll go to BC, the chisel brush here, and any one of these will work just fine. So if we start dragging this out, a couple things you need to keep in mind. Number one, the coolest thing is you can just drag something out. It looks really cool, right? Now the other thing is, if you want it to, so you're going to see where you have the lazy mouse coming behind it. If you go over here to your stroke menu, and where did it go? There it is. Under lazy radius, and you have a lazy snap. Now where that comes into play is, if we go way down here to your morph target. If we don't have a morph target stored, and you want to cut a panel line in here, and you want to kind of start from here, you're going to be like, oh, did I get, you know what? I almost got it. It's doing something crappy. And then if you go back over the line as well, it's going to like do that double deformation here. So first thing you want to do is store a morph target, and that allows you to not only pick up from the last area you left off, but also allows you to go across here. So you can cut in really intricate panel lines without having to worry too much. Now, caveat to that is you kind of want to, let's see if it's already turned on. So if we go to brush, tablet pressure over here. So size and Z intensity. Z intensity is already cranked up. For size, you can either use your mouse or you can change your size profile and just move that all the way up. So I'll just use my mouse. So now with mouse, using your mouse, it'll make sure that all the pressure is consistent, because with this brush, if you're using your tablet, if you start off soft and then kind of go heavy and then soft and then heavy, and then if you start soft again, it's going to do that, you know? So it's going to be an inconsistent line. So you want to make sure, you know, take this tablet pressure and scoot that up to max it out, or you can use your mouse and then it'll leave off at the last point you left off. And because we have a morph target stored, now it's not doing that double deformation. And also, this is also resolution based, so you are going to have a healthy bit of resolution here in order for this thing to kind of work correctly. Oh, another thing too is you can hold down shift. I'm not real good at this yet. You can hold down shift. Now it has kind of like the substance painter shift where it'll kind of snap. So you can draw out your line first. So if we want to lead off from this edge now, we can kind of position this thing and you can start drawing and then hold down shift. So it's like, I want to do a 45-degree angle and it'll kind of snap. But you can also kind of see, oh, you know what? When I subdivided, killed my morph target. So we'll go ahead and delete that. And we'll store, oops, I'm already a little bit high. Delete morph target, store morph target. There we go. We got a new morph target here. So now, like I said before, you can start dragging, hold down shift, and now you can choose like 45-degree angle, and then it'll snap. And then you can hold down shift and pull it out further and snap. And then you can hold down shift and go this way and snap. So now you can kind of do the little green line first. And we'll go all the way back here flat. Now, the reason why I can't really judge that distance is, let's go here. Let's go here. Let's go here. So let's see if I can make this end up right where I want to. So we'll go snap here. Now, if I let go of snap here, it's not going to go very far. I think that has something to do. I have to look at my notes. There is a way to kind of dictate how far it is going to snap. I forget what it is, though. Sorry, man. And even in the beta, you know, I didn't get as much done. I took a lot of notes. I have a ton of notes I need to go back over. So when I record my videos, I go back over the notes, and it reinforms my brain. But if it's something I didn't use a lot during the beta, or I did use it a lot, but it was, you know, a long time ago, then I'm going to forget all this stuff. But anyway, hope that's cool. I've been sculpting people with the mouth closed and using a layer to make the mouth open. Any point this isn't the mesh morphing between layers, simply not moving. Any point to this is it isn't the mesh morphing between layers, simply moving. Also, is there anything else useful for moving the mesh along as an animation? Actually, yeah, it kind of gives you a little bit more leeway. In fact, if you open up, you hit the comma key here, and we go into... Oh, do they have Nick Zuccarello's thing anymore? I guess that's under Tool. There he is. So here's Nick Zuccarello's. If you haven't checked out his stuff, look him up. He's good stuff. I used to work with this guy at EA Sports Tiburon. So if we go to our layers on here, yeah, so he does a mouth open slider. You can, of course, overcrank these things. So he probably didn't have this one, but that's a nice Popeye look. So we can go to, yeah, you can do mouth open and mouth closed. It just gives you a little bit more leeway so that you can, you know, sometimes when you're rigging stuff, they do prefer to have these verts not overlapping. So they want like a slight open mouth here because it's a little bit easier to like paint weights and stuff. Or sometimes they don't, sometimes they do. Sometimes they want you want an extreme pose. So you want to do the mouth way open and then maybe the neck forward and the platysma busting out. So you have, you know, if you're doing creature work, I prefer to do an extreme pose, so I make sure I have all the edge loops built in that I want. I think Jeff Unai, a long time ago, did a Maya. He built this creature and stuff, and he basically sculpted in this extreme pose. And it just, again, it's just to make sure that you have all these edge loops in there so that, you know, when you go and you retopologize something in a base pose and then they go and do an extreme pose, you know, you might notice that, oh my gosh, I'm missing a whole lot of geometry in order to create these shapes that I want to make. So, but it's been a long time since I've done that stuff. I'm sure there's better tools nowadays to do that stuff. What program would you recommend to learn the high to low retopology progress? Quirks and setbacks. I'm curious what she says. It kind of depends on what your preference is. I retopologize in ZBrush, Maya. Used to do it in Modo a lot. Heck, you can sometimes use Fusion 360 for to kind of spit out a mesh that'll kind of work a little bit. Not on organic stuff necessarily. I wouldn't use it for, but ZRemesher is a good one. Like I said, I use ZBrush, and you can use ZRemesher and the Z-sphere topology to kind of clean up. You can use 3D Coat. You can use Poly TopoGun. A lot of different ones. It kind of, I don't know. Maya's tools are pretty good now with the live stuff and snapping and the what do they call it? The modeling toolkit. So I don't know, any one of those. like you said, they're all kind of their own thing, and they all have their setbacks and weirdo-ness. I don't know that there's a best one. If anybody wants to reply with your favorites, go for it. Cool. Let's see. Still forcing R to turn off and on the dynamics of the changes with the crease levels. Yeah, I think maybe, and I have it work sometimes where it just updates on the fly, and sometimes it doesn't. So I'm just in the habit of turning it on and off. But it might just be a simple matter of like rotating your camera. I've noticed that with some of when I was like clipping. I guess we can go ahead and do it. So let's do a panel, just in case you missed it. Let's go ahead and we were working on something too, right? Yeah, let's go ahead and go back to this one here. We still have live Boolean turned on. So we're going to edit mode here. So let's say I want to cut a panel through this thing. So I am going to append anything, doesn't really matter. And then I'm going to take this append, I'm going to go to initialize and make it a Q cube. So we go into transparency here and we move this thing into place. I'll go ahead and scale this thing down. So let's say I want to cut a panel line here as a live Boolean. So I'm going to go into polyframe mode. And again, you can do an insert, or you can also just do a slice. Let's do a slice for fun. And now we can go up here. We'll do QMesh, single poly. We'll pull this up. Let's go ahead and turn on Ghost so we can go through this object, and we'll also turn on X symmetry. There we go. So we've got this thing here, and I want to isolate this little top piece here. Again, this is stuff we did in the video as well, but we'll just do it again real quick. So we'll hit Control W, make this all one poly group. We'll go ahead and do a bevel edge loop complete, and then we'll go ahead and do an insert multiple edge loops. We'll do interactive elevation so we can kind of pull back and kind of dial in what the resolution we want and what way we want it to bend. And now again we can do QMesh, polygroup all. Where are we at? Polygroup, QMesh. I'm on an edge. No, I'm not. QMesh, polygroup all. There we go. So now we can do this, and then when we turn on transparency, or turn off transparency, and then we turn on our live Boolean, we are going to have to set this thing up as a subtractive Boolean. There we go. So now we can cut in the panel line. The panel line is not going all the way through. So of course we need to go ahead and cut that all the way through. Let's go to polyframe here. And we should be, looks like I need to reset this thing here. So we'll go here, and then scale. There we go. So now we're cutting that panel all the way through. Now, if we had this order of operations, let me see what it was. Oh yeah, it was this thing here. So if I move this so it cuts last, let's go ahead and move this down our object because it's live. So we can kind of cut down through here. So now this thing is cutting through this one here. So if I want that operation to happen first, I can move this up, and it doesn't really update. Well, actually it is. It's cutting afterwards. So if we wanted to cut it first and then insert, it's still going to work because this isn't additive. So let's do an additive one really quick. So if I go ahead and do like a brush insert model toolkit, and let's grab this one, why not? And we just put this right here, and then we make that, let's go ahead and split unmasked points here, and we'll make this one additive there. Oops, this one additive, this one's subtractive. So now this order of operations is this one's additive and then it's cutting, which is what we want. However, if we move this one up, now it cuts first. See how it hasn't updated? If I just rotate, now it'll update. Might be the same thing with your dynamic subdivs. I'm not really sure, but cube primitives has poles in its topology. That goes all the way back to if you grab a cube 3D and then you go over here to your initialize here, the reason it has polarized cubes, and if you didn't notice yet, the brush insert primitives have two different versions. You have the Q cube, which is just a simple cube, and then you have the insert cube, which is this one. But the reason it has that is because in the initialized state, you can go to, or can you not? I thought you could. Oh, I guess so you can do this type of thing, but I also thought it had a, let's switch this out for a cylinder. I could have sworn the cube had this as well, but maybe it doesn't. But like the cylinder is polarized as well, because you can go in here and do your inner radius, which is kind of nice. As far as the polarized cap on the cube, I suppose it is just because you can go in here and change a cube into a cylinder if you want. Maybe that's why. Not really sure. But I thought for sure you could do a cube with the in inner radius, but maybe not. Are compound Booleans possible, like Modo Mesh Fusion compound Booleans? Yeah. So you can do Mesh Fusion, and that's another thing too. So let's go ahead and do a little bit of that. So let's go grab. Well, let's talk about Mesh Fusion first. So what is Mesh Fusion? If we take Nick Z's mail here, we're going to mess him up a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and do delete other crap. Let me load him back up. Wrong button. Load him up. And then now we got him selected. I'm going to do delete other. There we go. And now I want to go ahead and take his layers here. And, sorry. I'm going to go ahead and bake all those. So now we just got our mesh here. So, compound, so yeah, so what we're going to do is we can go through here with our guy here. Let's go ahead and put something on his shoulder here. So you can hold down Control and you can mask this out and hit Control W. That'll give you a polygroup. If you want to, you can also slice. So if we want, you know, and when I'm slicing through an object, sometimes I just like to isolate it. And then I go to this view, and now I can just do a slice circle. And if you want to make it a perfect circle, you can go in here to square center, and now it'll just make a perfect circle there. So now that you have a polygroup there, if you go to brush, insert, and you see these primitives H, anything with a hole on the back, if we do like a H cylinder, yeah, so it's got a hole in the back, you can go ahead, and as long as it's not a Dynamesh, you can control drag again, and it'll fuse those two together. And you don't have to drag away from the object. You can just keep it close to your object here. And if it's fusing in a weird way, you can make sure you have, you can turn the smooth modifier off, and it won't move or smooth anything. It'll just give you an edge ring, so you can kind of put these things on here. So, for example, what we can do is if we go to insert, actually, let's go to slide, edge loop complete here. We'll just kind of slide this ring out. So now this one, if we go to the side here, let's go ahead and do select lasso. We'll grab this one. We'll hit Control W. And you know what? Let's do Control Shift S to shrink that visibility, and then we'll make a polygroup for that one. So as long as you have a separate polygroup on here, if we go to Brush, Insert, let's go to the Model Toolkit maybe. Let's see what they got in here. Anything interesting? Let's go to Brush, Insert, not Machine Parts. Let's go to our Boolean here. So there's some interesting stuff in here. So we can do this port access here. So this port access, if we drag this one out, this one doesn't have a hole in the back. It's set up so that if we do a split masked points, let's do that, and we'll isolate this one. You're going to see it's kind of double-sided. So let's turn perspective off as well. I can go ahead and get rid of this. So let's go ahead. We don't need these faces back here, so we'll go ahead and delete hidden. So what we can do now is I'm going to make this my own insert mesh brush. I'm just going to go to Brush, create insert mesh new, just to kind of demonstrate this mesh fusion thing. So I'm going to go back to my Nick Z humanoid. We don't need that anymore. So now with this new one I have with the hole in the back, I can go put that right over the hole here. And now I can fuse these together just by control dragging. And again, you can turn the smooth modifier, and again, it does the mesh fusion thing. If you have smooth modifier on and off, you can kind of play around with that. And now it's just a little simple matter of going in here. We can do an insert single edge loop, and now we can kind of get rid of these transitions here if we want, and kind of fuse those together. So now when we hit D, it'll go ahead and do a little bit of mesh fusion. Of course, you can use mesh fusion in symmetry and radial symmetry. You can put all sorts of cool stuff in here if you wanted to do that. But it's a little bit easier if you're, you know, working on local radial symmetry. Might be a little bit difficult here, but you can give it a shot. But anyway, hope that made sense. As far as using mesh fusion in conjunction with the Booleans, in conjunction with meshes you might have already modeled. Work around to fix seams in Substance Painter with UDIMs. Oh man. No solution that I have. I haven't looked into that in a while. I guess use Mari in the meantime. As far as if you want to paint over the UDIM seams, Mari does a good job. Yeah, in Substance Painter, it's more of a texture set, so you do have to kind of switch between them, I think. But I don't have a good answer for that. Default material on startup. That's a good one. I throw my materials down here that I use a lot, the Matcap Skin Pearl and the Skin Shader, just for that very reason. I'm not sure off the top of my head. New live Boolean features Dynamesh subtract function between subtotals useless or all totally still could be used in case. Yeah, you can use, I still use the Dynamesh subtractor stuff. It's more destructive. So like once you go and you do it, it's kind of stuck there. You can't go in and be like, oh, you know what? I wish this was moved a little bit. So in that case, what you might want to do is use the Booleans to kind of get your preview, make a union mesh, and then dynamesh that union mesh if you want to work non-destructively and then switch over to destructive. I know, I gotta, okay, gotta calm down. I think the pre-workout's kicking in. Speaking of pre-workout, I gotta go work out in 30 minutes. Yeah, lazy radius step. I might be really behind in these comments. Sorry about that. Yeah, oh, that's a good point. So when you do the lazy mouse stuff that we were talking about where we're snapping, let me see. There is something on here. So if I grab this one, and we were doing the brush chisel, so BC, the chisel brush here, and we were talking about the stroke. Let's go ahead and turn off live Boolean. So we were talking about the stroke with the lazy snap. If you don't want it to lazy snap, if it is causing you angst, you can go in here, and I think Paul said if you change the lazy snap to 4 or lower, it will not do the whole lazy snap thing. So if that ends up getting in your way, I think we still have a morph target stored, so it is behaving nicely. But if the lazy snap is kind of doing things that you're not sure you want it to do, just change that snap distance down. Whew. Cool, I'll have to go check out those Nick Z tutorials. Yeah, I'm still working on mine. I'll get those out soon, probably this weekend. Should I move from Blender to another program? I'm so used to it, it'd be difficult for me. You don't have to. I mean, you can model in whatever you want. If you're going to a production pipeline, the in-house people may have every place I've ever worked has always been a Maya backbone, usually due to animation. So everything goes through Maya. So you might need to learn a little bit of Maya, but your mileage may vary. It might be 3D Studio Max, it might be Modo, to kind of get things through to the engine, depending on what kind of pipeline you're working on. But most places I've seen will allow you to do your high-res stuff in whatever you want, as long as you make it compatible for their other people working there and stuff. Cool. Yeah, I would agree with Maya topology. Sometimes it has little quirks. There's actually some instances where I'm using the Z-sphere topology just because it's a little bit easier to work with super dense meshes. I can retopologize something with 40 million polygons with no big deal, but to do that anywhere else, I would have to make the decision of, like, do I want to decimate this and put that out and make it a live surface, or I just want to do it in ZBrush. How do you maintain scale from ZBrush to Fusion? I usually just import something and just use whatever native scale it had. Same thing with Marvelous Designer. I'll usually hop back and forth with Marvelous Designer scale, but you can kind of dial in the centimeters to meters. Oh, you know what? There is something in here. I don't use it a lot, but there's a lot of new scale stuff. So there's Scale Master now built into the Z plugin. So you can kind of use this for like insert millimeters, centimeters, inches, feet. You can kind of mess with this a little bit. I need to play with this a little bit more, so I'm not going to go into it now. I don't want to embarrass myself. But there's Scale Master in here now. Check that out. I'm doing good. Thanks for asking. Thanks for showing up. And the pivot gear button when you select primitive side. That's yes. So when you do, that's a good point, Axel. Let me go ahead and show that a little bit. So if I grab this, I guess it doesn't really matter. So we'll grab this one here. If we hit W and we hit this gear, there is you can do now you can do polycylinder here. So we can go ahead and we can do on the fly X and Y and V divides. If I want to go back in here and you're like, you know what, let's do a polysphere. Now all of these initialized options are set up within your little Gizmo here. Let's do a cube. Yeah, there we go. So now you can do X, Y, and Z divides. So really quickly, you can just set up primitives in here. There's also a way, I want to keep that. I think if I mask it out and then I do a polysphere and then I move this out, I should be able to go back in and continue. Or you know what, let me see, polysphere, let's do a ring 3D. Yeah, and now I can set this ring 3D radius here. So you can kind of start building coverage. Whoop, there we go. Length divides, V divides, S divides. So you can start just making primitives with your thing here. So I think it's just, again, you just mask everything, and then you can set up a new primitive, and then you can go in here and set up your H divides, V divides really quickly. Inner radius here. There we go. And now when we're done with that, we can hit I think we're good. So we'll go back to Gizmo 3D, and now we can start scaling this stuff down. So instead of going in here to your brush insert primitives, you can just use this thing to create primitives on the fly. And we'll go ahead and split this off here. And now we can hit like D, and then we'll go ahead and use our, let's see if we can use our crease tolerance here. That's a little bit high. There we go. All that good stuff. And now we can kind of scale these things to fit. So use the Gizmo for your primitive creation if you want. Thanks for bringing that up, Axel. Live Booleans with NanoMesh. Yeah, so Live Booleans works with an amazing number of things. I remember in the live stream they were doing, everybody in the chat was like, does it work with this? Does it work with this? Does it work with this? And it's basically, if it's two polygons interacting, it'll probably work. You'll be in good shape. So let's go ahead and we can do array mesh, we can do nanomesh, we can do noise. Let's see, delete. What am I looking for? Let's see. Here we go, delete hidden. So you've got this thing here. Let's go ahead and do our whole dynamic QGrid coverage thing we like to do. And now we can go to brush, insert Boolean, and we'll just grab one, and we'll toss that on there, and we'll go ahead and do split unmasked points. And now we've got this one. We'll do subtractive. Turn on Boolean. There we go. So, and we'll also hit D. Now this one inherited my QMesh. Dynamic QGrid with dynamic, which I don't want. So we'll just go ahead and turn that down. So, what was the question? Nanomesh. So if we have nanomesh here, let's go ahead. I'm going to take this polymesh 3D and I'm going to duplicate it. And then on this duplicate, what I'm going to do is go into polyframe mode. We'll hit Shift D in solo mode. And we'll go ahead and grab this one here and we'll go ahead and delete hidden. So now what I can do, my ZModeler brush, we'll go to insert nanomesh and we'll go ahead and insert a nanomesh in all the poly groups here, and it should just be like cube by default, which is fine. So we'll go ahead and insert that nanomesh there, and we'll go ahead and, where's the nanomesh options? Here we go. Nanomesh here, let's go ahead and change any rotations we might have. I think we're in good shape. We'll go ahead and fit size, so now they all fit together, and now I can change my widths and my lengths here. And also my Z offset seems to be out of control. So we'll change our Z offset here. So hopefully I'm not lying to you guys, because honestly I don't remember if I did nanomesh or not. Because this plane is there. So I'm going to take this plane, I'll move it out just a little bit here. So the nanomesh is still interacting with this plane here. So if I turn this off, and we've got live Boolean here, we've got our polymesh here, we'll change that to subtractive. And yeah, so now we have our nanomesh interacting with our model here. So if we go back to our nanomesh, we can go through here. And we can kind of play with, you know what, let's scatter these things. So I'm going to go to random distribution. We can just start scattering cubes on here, and then we can go back in here and kind of push these things out. Now I still do have the plane on there, so it is interacting with that plane just a little bit, it looks like. Oh, maybe not. Kind of hard to tell. But yeah, works fine with this thing. If you like nanomesh and you also like surface noise, we can go in here to surface noise here. And let's just go ahead and hit OK. And let's see, does surface noise apply to nanomesh? Let me go to solo mode here. Oh, it's applying to the plane, not the nanomesh nanomesh object itself, so that makes sense. So we'll go ahead and turn that off. So if we do want to, let's go ahead and take our nanomesh here, and we'll go 1 to mesh, and we'll just go ahead and get rid of this plane here. Go ahead and delete hidden. And now we can go to our surface noise, add surface noise, and now our surface noise is being applied to our nanomesh objects. Previously nanomesh objects, now they're just objects. And now the surface noise is also being transferred via our live Boolean stuff. Cool, cool. Cool, awesome. So you can change the default material in ZBrush Start. That's cool. Speaking of nanomesh, when I tried to export a nanomesh object to 3D, I lost all of the nanomesh leaving behind, just was left underneath anyway around this. Yeah, nanomesh when you go into export, so these are just instances. When you do your nanomesh, you just have one, they're instances baked to a plane basically. So if we do that again, let's go ahead and do here. And wait. Oh yeah, we still have live Boolean turned on. So I'm like, wait, why is that cut out? And it's like, oh yeah, because these things are still subtractive. So don't get scared, Mike. Let's go ahead and turn our render off, and we'll go ahead and do another delete hidden. And on this one, let's insert something else onto this. So if we go to our ZModeler brush, we go to insert nanomesh. Let's do helix. So So we'll go ahead and drag out some helixes, and we'll put that on our nanomesh plane. So because they're just instances, it's cool because you can go in here with your plane. You just kind of move this plane around, and whatever you do to these, this plane, it'll go ahead and influence your nanomesh, because your nanomesh is really just getting properties from the surface underneath, as well as the polygroup. So when I drag this out, I did insert nanomesh and polygroup all. If I change any of these polygroups by going to like polygroup, a single poly, I can go ahead and get rid of some of these, because again, I'm just telling it when I originally dragged these out, I just wanted it on the red ones, as well as you can go here and you can, because they're just instances taking their information from the surface of these individual polygons, you can change your size and your Z offset here. You can kind of embed them a little bit, and you can get them to fit or fill, and then change your size to 1 so they fit right in there. Any of the things you want to do, and then it's still updatable by moving this stuff around, kind of like micromesh as well, just a little bit more functionality. And then you can also get rid of these. Or we can go ahead and hover over this face. We can do, let's see, polygroup, single poly. I'm going to tap and then hold down Shift to inherit that polygroup. And now I can go back through and re-polygroup the ones that I want. Just be careful you don't insert an edge here. Cool. So now, yeah, when you do export this, if it doesn't export any of the meshes, just go to your inventory and do one to mesh. And that'll make it actual geo, and then you can go ahead and split those off. So we'll go ahead and tag this one. Then this one should just export as geo. I don't know if there's an interface that'll speak between Maya and Max and ZBrush that tells it with GoZ maybe, hey, these are instances, so when you bring it in, make sure they show up as instances maybe. I'm not sure if that's a thing, but how do you model the teeth of an adjustable spanner? I don't know what that is. Adjustable spanner wrench. Oh, is that little thing you twist on the inside? I'd probably use a helix for that, or you could do a twist, kind of like I did for the rifle barreling. And this gets into the initialize thing we were talking about earlier. If you take a cube 3D, like so, and you go to initialize, let's change our X size down to 25, and our Z size down to 25. So if you saw the beta testers, oops, Z size, we want to keep the same Y size. No, what is it doing? Initialize, H divides, V divides. It's doing something weird. Let me grab, switch, Control N, cylinder 3D. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. So on this cylinder here, it looks like it kept our previous initialized state, so we'll go ahead and get our inner radius here. So with this one, let's do 25, 25, and we'll go ahead and change our H divides. We'll change that back to like 16. Let's do 24. And we'll also do our V divides here just to make these nice even cubes here. So if you wanted to, one of the things you can do is you can go up here to, while you're still in your initialized state, if you go to masking, there's mask by alpha. So if you mask your whole object and then you do select to, skip to, and we'll do columns, you can go ahead and do column selection, and then you can go through here and you can inflate and you can twist here. So you can kind of set up, let's twist around the Y. There we go. So you can kind of twist these things. So that's kind of how I did the rifle barrel rifling. So you can try doing that and kind of, and now obviously you don't want to twist like that, but you can kind of go through here and twist, and then you can choose any one of these polygroups here. So if we go ahead and do make polymesh 3D, we'll go ahead and grab this one, invert it, grab these ones, so I can get rid of these caps here. Let's go ahead and invert that, and we'll go ahead and delete hidden. So now what you can do is grab any one of these, and you can kind of pop it out into its own thing or duplicate it around. You can also use helix, the helix 3D we were playing around with. So if you go into your helix thing, let's change our radius. If you grab one of these and you pull it off, it'll just delete it. Alternatively, you can grab one of these, see outside a soft fall off here, you can grab it off and then pull it back on, and then it'll go to a harsh transition and back and forth, so you can kind of do that. But you can use a helix instead to kind of get that wrapped kind of look, and then you can go through here and model this however you'd like to kind of pinch down to kind of get that little spinny thing. Hey, thanks for showing up, Thomas. Yeah, take some time off, man. Get some sleep. How's Lumi 3D coming along? What'll it become? That's just something I keep on the side. It's a business that, you know, if I do anything on the side, I like to go through a business just to make things a little bit better. We've got some really interesting stuff going on with Lumi. Keep your eyes peeled. I might start working on stuff in here eventually that's for Lumi. Shift drag in R8 when dragging new geometry. It should, let me see. I know, let me see. If we make a polymesh 3D, brush insert primitives here in QCube. Yeah, this is probably a bad example. Let's go to something with a surface normal that are a little bit more regular. Let's switch to maybe a cube 3D. There we go. Yeah, shift's dragging, doing something a little bit weird. So if you could drag out, and we hold down shift. I wonder, sometimes when you hold down control, it'll snap it back. I wonder if that's due to the pivot. No. Well, the good news is you can just hit reset, and that'll go ahead and snap it back to, because it'll keep your pivot where it originally dragged out. So your pivot is fine. So if you just hit this reset button, it'll go ahead and snap back. Not sure. I'll have to play with that a little bit. Is there an easy way to make cloth folds easily? A lot of sculpting and then ZMeshing. If you've watched any of my previous stuff, let me go ahead and spam you guys again. If you go here, I do most of my cloth in Marvelous Designer just because it's a little bit. I'm terrible at sculpting cloth, so I can make it in Marvelous Designer really quick, bring it into ZBrush, and then resim it with ZRemesher, and then give it thickness in ZBrush. So we do that a ton on my previous thing. So if you go to Marvelous, there's a Marvelous and ZBrush quick start that you can kind of watch, and you can play with that a little bit. And also if you go to the live stream highlights, I go through a bunch of different instances of using Marvelous Designer. Is the convert to Geo and just the R8 or R7 as well? And was that under the nano menu? Yeah, I don't think that's changed. I think the inventory is still the same. Can I use the new deformer tool? Yes, I can. Not well, but I can certainly give it a shot. So let's go ahead and do split mass points on this thing, and we've got this thing here. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to go to Insert Single Edge Loop, hold down Alt, and then Insert Multiple Edge Loops will give this thing some more resolution. Now, you're seeing I have interactive resolution on, so I can kind of do this type of thing, which is kind of neat. You know what? We'll keep it. That'll work. And I'm also going to go ahead and scale this out. So W, go in here, and let's go to Bend Arc. We'll start with this one. So if I go into solo mode here, you're going to see there's a lot of different little things on here. So we can go to twist, and you can kind of twist this thing out. You can go to radius, and that'll change the radius as you're working and the angle on this thing. So we can kind of bend the angle here, and then you can change the radius of that angle. So if you're matching something, you can kind of just go through here and match that angle, and then you can twist along that angle if you'd like. Other options here, you can twist from this side, you can twist from this side, and if you like what you're seeing, you can go ahead and accept it, or you can reset it, or you can delete it. We can go back here, bend curve. And again, these are all things I need to play with more. I have a lot of notes on this stuff, but I think I'm trying to see who did, like Solomon is really good at this type of stuff. He uses it a lot, I think. So you've got curve resolution. So we're going to start here. Symmetrical one, no. One is yes. Let's keep it no. Axis, you can change the axis here. So along X, Y, and Z, let's go ahead and do this axis, and then we'll go ahead and do smoothness. You're not going to see a change because we're not deforming it yet, but you can go ahead and change this resolution. So now that we have this, we can go ahead and here's another smooth here. I think that might be overall smooth. So now we got these little points. We can go in here and kind of drag these points around. And now each one of these points also has a little bit of deformation here. So you can go in here, and for this first one, you can kind of twist along that point, or you can kind of scale along that point here. So we can kind of go through here, and let's see, we can scale this down and scale this down a little bit. And now that smoothness fall off, if we go back here to the smoothness, let's see if it's this one. Yeah, so this one will control the smoothness in between all of these. So if you don't want it super harsh, you can change that smoothness, and then you can go back and grab this one, and you can like, okay, we'll continue to kind of scale this up, or squeeze it down if you want to, or twist it around if you want to. And then of course you can just move this thing around. So that's a cool one. And again, if you like this, you can hit accept or reset, or you can delete. Let's go ahead and just delete that one. Moving right along, deformer is our lattice deformer here. We were playing with this a little bit earlier. So this one still, it maintains our previous settings, it looks like. So we had, where's my other little thing? Is it this one? Yeah, so we got Y symmetry here. So if you don't want any symmetry, you can go back to Z, 1 parallel, 2 is mirror, and then 0 is no symmetry here, I think. So now we can mask the points we want. Let me see. It's still doing mirrored symmetry, Z smoothness. But what you can do is you can select these points. If you hold down Control, you can unmask points, or you can deselect points because you're masking them out. However, if you do Control, and then let's go ahead and take all the points off. So now we can't manipulate any of these points. Now if you do Control and Alt, and you can also do spacebar, and now you can grab all these points here, and now it'll just select these points, and now you'll be able to manipulate all of these points at once across the x-axis as kind of like a lattice deformer in Maya, or the, what do they call it, Max? I forget. Free modifier transformer thing. So we can go back here. Let's go and delete that one. Any more in here? There's the extender. This is an interesting, multi-slice is another interesting one. Taper and twist, pretty self-explanatory. Let me go to a cube 3D, and we'll go ahead and initialize. Let's go ahead and make PolyMesh 3D, and we'll go ahead and throw this into a cube. Now this one, let's go ahead and let's do, actually when we do initialize, let's do initialize of resolution of 1. There we go. Now I'll unify that to make it a little bit bigger. And now with this one, let's go ahead and do our geometry dynamic, and we'll do QGrid, and we'll do our coverage. And let's turn off bevel. There we go. And now we can go ahead and apply those subdivisions here, and I'm going to also go ahead and delete lower. So we've got plenty of geometry on here. So now if I hit W, let's play around with this one a little bit. The multi-slice one. So you've got this option here, which is apply creasing, which we're not to here. Here's the center of the multi-slice, and then here's the slice width, and the slice width in X, Y, and Z, basically. So if we kind of play around with these things here, we can change the resolution of the slice. We can change how wide it is, and also where it's positioned on our mesh here. So that's kind of cool. And you can also do that in the X, Y, and Z. So we can kind of go through here, and we can slice this way and change that width. And then we can slice this way and change the width here and the resolution. So it's kind of just modifying this. And you can also, like I said, you can apply creasing to these new ones or not. And you can also move, where these things are in space here. So you can kind of go through here and move these things around. So you can kind of do some multi-slice like that. It's kind of neat. FFD, there you go. Thank you. Awesome, thanks. I'm glad, Squanchy, thanks for showing up. Still waiting for Rick and Morty Season 3 to come out. I guess that's this summer. I guess we'll see. Is there a way to copy an object multiple times, keeping the same distance between the copies along any axis? Yes, for sure, and I do use that all the time. Now in ZBrush 4.8, I think it's a little bit different. So if I go in here, let's do brush insert. We'll go to our primitives again, and we'll just do a Q-cube. Now I tend to want to use array mesh. It's a little bit, like I said, non-destructive. It gives me a little bit more options, but we'll go ahead and talk about this too real quick. And we'll do split on mesh points here. So for example, if I have this one selected, if you hit W and you hold down Control, you can make a copy, and you can just keep holding down Control. But if you want to space them out specifically, what you can do is you can hit W, you can turn on sticky, hold down Control, and then you can hit 1 to replay last. And then I'll go ahead and space them out. However, what I prefer to do is use our array mesh. And so what array mesh allows us to do, and of course you can do this on any axis. So if you hold down Alt and okay, I want to do this in a 45-degree angle here. Well, first let's go ahead and turn off sticky, I think. So we'll turn this to a 45-degree angle. And then what I can do is now I can turn on sticky and then Control Alt drag, and now I can hit 1 and it'll just shoot it off that way. So remember, you can reset your pivot. However, you can also do this in array mesh too, and it gives you a little bit more options here. So if I hit W and then let's do turn off sticky, reset that. Okay, so under array mesh, let's do array mesh in the live Boolean surface because it's the new hotness. So we're going to take this here, we're going to turn on live Boolean, we're going to make this subtractive here. So now with array mesh here, what we can do, and just like I said before, you can again turn on sticky, Control drag this out, and then just keep hitting 1. Now, however, if I want to modify this one and have it propagate out to the other instances, you're going to want to use array mesh. So we did this on the videos as well, but it's totally cool. So we'll do it again. because I feel like it. So we're going to go to array mesh here, and then instead of using, duplicating out this thing, what I can do is use array mesh, and we'll go ahead and say I want to do like 5 copies, and I want to do, let's play with these things. So I'm not really sure my offset is. So offset this way is going out the back here. The Y amount is going down. That's what I want. And then the X amount will probably go side to side. There you go. So we'll do Y amount. We want to pull these things down. And because it's live Boolean, it's all updating on the fly. I can go in here. Now, this instance, if I go into solo mode and turn on polyframe, you're going to see these don't have polyframes because they're just instances. This is my real geometry here. So we'll go ahead and do our dynamic and our QGrid again, our trusty QGrid. Like so. So now what we can do is we can start modifying this thing. So if I want to kind of link these things together, let's go ahead and hover over this edge. We'll go to bevel edge loop complete. We'll kind of bevel this one out, and we'll go ahead and grab QMesh. We'll do a single poly along here and kind of pull this out. Now you're going to see they start moving, which is not a good thing because I want to keep these things all kind of centered on here. So that's not going to work. So I'm going to go back to my array mesh. I'm going to say lock size, lock position. And we'll go ahead and just start QMeshing this stuff out. So, and you can see it's updating on the fly. If I go into solo mode here, you can, if we want to, it's kind of hard to see in here, but if you want to, you can turn off array mesh temporarily. You can alt tag these ones, and you can start modeling these things down. Then you can turn array mesh back on. So with array mesh on, let's go ahead, and I'm going to alt tag these ones. I'm going to do an inset. Let's do it on both sides. So I'm going to grab these ones. I'm going to alt tag these ones and alt tag these ones. I'm going to go to inset. Single poly, inset region, we can kind of give a little bit of a border around these things. And now I can do, let's do QMesh polygroup island. I don't want to do polygroup all because it's going to go to both sides at the same time. But if I do polygroup island, we can pull just one side down. So now with that, if I go out of solo mode and I turn on array mesh, you're going to see it's updating on the fly. These things are all interacting together nicely. You can do Shift D if it's kind of bugging you to have these things softened. So now with this one, I want to push this one in. So again, QMesh polygroup island. So now these things will like fit within each other like this. So as I keep pulling this one down here, it'll fit into the top. And if you want to do QMesh without adding subdivision, just hold down Shift as you're moving, and it'll just kind of move these things down like so. So now these things are all behaving nicely and interacting nicely. We can do Shift D, and we can also like we can slide edge loop partial and kind of slide these. Oh, it's not going to slide edge loop partial for me. Well, we can go through here and we can mask an edge. We can mask this edge and this one, invert that mask, and now we can do, you can just move, or we can just slide edge loop complete, and now it'll just slide both of these. We're not working in X symmetry, so we can turn those on, but when I put this on, I wasn't thinking about X symmetry, so that's not going to work. Anyway, all of this stuff could be happening on the fly with array mesh, with live sub Ds on here. And it is live, so you can just kind of move these around, or I want to make this one, oops, turn off X symmetry here. Let's move this one over here. We can hold down Control and drag. And if I want to make this one, if I go out of solo mode here, it's like, you know what, I want to make this one additive. Let's go ahead and just split mask points here. And then because that's a separate subtool now, we can make this additive. And now we've got an additive and a subtractive version of both of those things. Cool. We got a couple Romans. Cool. All right, it is 8 o'clock. I should probably work out. So let me see if we got any last minute stuff. Question. Whenever I look at your work and other people's work, they look amazing. Yet when I look at something that looks like a turd on a stick. I mean, if you're modeling a turd on a stick, and that's what you're trying to create, then you're nailing it. But if you're trying to model something else and it looks like a turd on a stick, really that's just, observation and experience. And I make turds on a stick all the time. In fact, if you watch my live stream, I've made several turds on a stick just today. But it just make a million turds on a stick, and every turd on a stick you make will get continuously better and better, and then eventually you're going to make the world's greatest turd on a stick. I promise. And if I do anything that makes it look easy or it looks good, it's probably because I've done it before, and I'm able to pull from previous experience, and it looks easy, but only because I failed at it a million times first. ZBrush R8's looking good. ZBrush, I first started working with ZBrush. We were talking about this earlier. I guess 2.5 early 2.5, and then I think that's 3.1 is when I started using it really, really heavily. But way back in college, I went to Ringling. 2003, I think, was the first year I used ZBrush. Cool. Thanks for, keep making those turds on a stick, and we all are, actually. Even the people you think are the best in the world, and I'm not one of those, but there are amazing people out there who I'm sure model stuff and are like, it wasn't quite what I was hoping for. So, cool. All right. See y'all later. I'm going to go ahead, head out. You guys have a good day. And I'll post, again, let me just spam you guys real quick, just to keep everybody, if you just showed up. If you go here, this is where all the video on demands end up, and also any videos I end up posting will end up here. If you want to see the ZBrush live streams that I do for their channel, you can check them out here. And also check out their other people. They have amazing people on there that do all sorts of different things. I don't have like one niche thing that I do, but they do have some really nice people who do amazing stuff over there. So check that out. And if you want walkthroughs that are a little bit more concise and a little bit prettier to look at, you can go to my ArtStation page. And that has a bunch of videos on there and walkthroughs and images and stuff like that. So I stream on, my next stream will be next Tuesday on Pixelogic's channel, Twitch TV/Pixelogic. And that'll be Tuesday morning, same time, same bat place, 4 a.m. PST to 6 a.m. PST. And then Thursdays, 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. PST. So subscribe if you want to. If you don't, no big deal, but that's where I'll be. Cool. All right, guys. I'll go ahead and log out. See you guys later. Catch you on the flip side.